Hey there, folks. Welcome to the Ope-Eh three-way. As always, I'm joined by my good buds, Donnie and Pierce. We're here today to talk about a little Summerslam. Fellas, how you we doing today?
Doing good. Doing great after that
Doing pretty
PLE.
good. Oh yeah, we're doing real good after that.
Yeah, I'm doing good here too. Well, I can't say I'm doing good. I got a little bit of the walking pneumonia, so if I happen to mute the mic for a little bit of a coughing spell, my apologies. Uh, Less of me talking today, probably the better anyhow. Excuse me. There you go. All right, take two. All right, so SummerSlam, right? Arguably, I don't know about your opinion, fellas, but in my opinion, arguably one of the top PLEs that I've seen in recent memory. Definitely top three SummerSlams. What do you think, fellas?
Yeah, agreed. I would put it in top three. Don't know if I put it in number one, but arguments there.
Man, like it WrestleMania feels like such a letdown compared to what SummerSlam was. Like that was just like SummerSlam was just an end-to-end banger of a show. There's no other way to
And
say it really.
I think that's part of what made it too. I feel like you just concentrated so much goodness into one day, and they really, I mean, a lot of what began either at WrestleMania or even just prior, really kind of topped off at SummerSlam, or it really built to a new peak, and we're looking at new ways at which stories can expand and which ways these guys' careers can go. So, I mean, I feel like it's one of those things where it's kind of the beginning of SummerSlams in the Paul Levesque era is the very, very first SummerSlam without any McMahon influence at all, surprisingly. And
Well,
also the
there was
last,
one.
which was that, did I miss
Steph was
something?
in the front row. Steph was in the front row. She
Well,
influenced people by clapping.
uh, sending out sending out a little code via Morse. Was there a message I should have been taken from her rhythm there in the clappings?
I don't know. She did hug CM Punk, but we'll get to that later.
I'll have to watch that back. But it certainly also was the last, if I'm not mistaken, to feature only in one night. Which I mean, if you can do what they did in this SummerSlam in one night, I feel like there's arguments you made like we can keep it that way. I don't know if taking it to two nights will be better for worse. Well, I guess we'll find out if they can pack two nights of that into what we just had. Then, I mean, I'm all for it. But for one night of a major PLE following WrestleMania, that definitely felt like a WrestleMania tier PLE to me.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the whole two-night approach because I mean we've seen that for WrestleMania for a couple years, and it just kind of makes me feel like this show this past weekend was incredible. There's no way about it. And it's funny because if you actually watch back all of these matches for the matches themselves, it's some of the matches were good, some of the matches were fine. I wouldn't say any of the matches were like fantastic. Maybe we'll get into that in a little bit specifically, but like just the having some engaging storylines and content and title changes and stuff, which was such a nice change of pace compared to what we've been getting recently. And to put that over two nights, you're just going to end up with a lot of filler, I feel like, to get you there, or just have like only five matches and even more promos and advertisements and stuff, which is not necessarily what you want to have either. I think this is a great mix. I don't think you can get away with a pay per view like this or PLE like this every single month, but for a big four, I think they just knocked it out of the park.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, we're gonna get into SummerSlam in a little bit, but as we normally do on the podcast, we're gonna do the on this day segment. So, Pierce, take it away for us. What happened on August the 7th of some time in history?
Well, we're going to take you back to 2001, middle of the invasion, SmackDown. Pretty eventful SmackDown taping. DDP and Canyon defeat the APA to become the first WCW team to win the WWF tag titles. And on the other side, the Brothers of Destruction defeated Sean O'Hare and Chuck Palumbo to become the first WWF tag team to win the WCW tag titles. And that culminates at SummerSlam 2001, where the Brothers of Destruction destroy DDP and Canyon.
To the
Very
surprise
fitting.
of nobody.
It wasn't even a fuck, like, you can't call it a burial because it was they put them to the core of the earth, which is insane.
Burial assumes there was a corpse left.
Yeah. And like, DDP is awesome, Canyon was great, and DDP was, besides Booker T in the Invasion, like the highest star power wise that WCW had realistically that came over. And you put him in a stalker storyline with Undertaker's then wife, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, especially after you saw the pop that he got, after people realized it was him too. That was almost forgivable to put him in that based on the love that the people had for him alone, but still, right? Like, what a waste of his potential.
Right. And, I mean, I'm glad DDP got his flowers with the Hall of Fame and everything. He deserves it. Because he's such a good dude.
He's making still, like, huge positive influence in the world around him.
He saved people's lives. Like, legitimately. I don't think Scott Hall would have went as far as he did in his life, and Jake Roberts as well. I mean, DDP is a saint in the wrestling world.
Yeah, one of few.
And also on that SmackDown, Rhino gored Chris Jericho through the stage. The next week, the classic SmackDown fist debuts.
What a sequence, eh?
Rhino's gore killed SmackDown.
I actually remember watching that one live too. And I didn't think to put the two together, but yeah, talk about memories from a bygone era. There's definitely a time in pro wrestling. It was weird just to see Rhino. I mean, and I'd heard about Rhino back in the day. You know, I played a little bit of ECW Hardcore Revolution on the Nintendo 64. My only real exposure to ECW, because again, I didn't have, TNN at the time. I was a poor. So getting to know a little bit about Rhino through a video and then see him kind of come to life for the first time, even though he'd been wrecking shit in ECW for years too. It was really cool to see. And it was cool to see someone who actually hit a spear besides Goldberg with such ridiculous ferocity. Oh, it's not a spear, it's a gore, right? But
there's a difference.
Yeah, someone in somewhere will argue that point.
You gotta scream it from the rooftops when you say it, as per Paul Heyman. So like 7 times consecutively.
Oh, I can't be screaming nothing today, boys. Maybe that's best. Pardon me. What's that?
Do what you can, Brandon. But
yeah.
I'm gonna make you pretty happy right now because I got some TNA history for you.
I thought it was gonna be Austin Theory history there for a second.
Shut up! Stop it.
Making history every day, boys.
That man has no history.
No, you're right. He's got a future. He's got a future, a bright future.
Just a theory, an Austin Theory. Shout out to Matt Pat.
Better than Austin Hypothesis. I don't know.
Fair enough. But
Forget I said that. Continue.
We're gonna go back to TNA. Ron the Truth Killings defeats Ken Shamrock to become the first, and I believe to this day still only, African American NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and was also the first NWA title change in TNA history. And now he's a comedy babyface.
I'm trying to think of who else could have been champion in TNA. Elijah never won. Elijah Burke?
Nope. Nah.
Never won?
No.
And at that point, it was TNA World Champ. Sorry, Brandon.
No, you're fine. No, I was going to say Pope was pimping, but he was never world champion, right? Like Pierce said, it was TNA full on by the time Pope made it there. and they were pulling at him hard. Like they were really teasing him. Eventually winning gold, and for all intents and purposes, he should have. I mean, he was so ridiculously over at the time, and I think he could have made strides for the company, but they just never went with him.
Booker T never won either.
Nope.
Not the NWA.
The only title he won in TNA was the Legends title or whatever it was called.
Yeah. The Legends / Global / Television / King of the Mountain Championship. Yeah.
We're going to go back to some more TNA. Believe it or not, Hard Justice 2011 happened on this day. Kurt Angle in the main event defeated Sting to become the TNA World Champion for the 5th time. And I think this was about 95% Perk Angle at that point, so it was probably a banger.
Yeah, Stinger didn't know what he was in for in that one. I don't know if Kurt knew exactly what he was in for either, but hard to say if he even knew who he was at the time, but banger after banger. Pill after pill.
We love you, Kurt. Thanks for meeting us.
Yeah, thank you for shaking my hand, Kurt. Real American.
But I think it's time we get on to SummerSlam, and if I could, holy shit, boys. What a mid-season show for WWE. I feel like everything delivered, and as we say, I feel very professional wrestling by that.
Yeah, I was very sports entertained on my end.
Oh.
You can't. I know you're not supposed to say it, but this was a story-driven show, and
It was.
It really came across that way throughout a lot of the matches, and definitely some of the post-match results as well. So, figure we'll start from the top and work our way through each match. Starting with Liv Morgan successfully retaining her Women's World Championship by defeating Rhea Ripley, 15 minutes and 55 seconds. And post-match, obviously, we all saw Dirty Dom pick up Liv. It wasn't obvious during the match that Dom was trying to help her out, but post-match picks her up off the outside on the floor and have a very face-smashing makeout session to Rhea's chagrin. Thoughts on the match, guys?
Some was kind of whispering to me as soon as that. It was before the bell rang. As soon as you saw Rhea come out with Dom for the first time, and I think ever, you kind of could tell there was going to be some shenanigans afoot. I felt like I didn't know how it was going to happen, and I didn't think it was going to be so Christian, Jericho, Trish in kind of how it all unfolded. But yeah, no, Dom's and whoever lost that match, Dom all came out a winner. So hats off to Cramity. Hats off to Dirty Dom, aka Sucio. But yeah, it sucks for Rhea Ripley though. I mean, she's got a little longer to go on the road, but I still think she's going to get there. I think she's going to get back that women's world title. But it was a great, great match.
It was a solid match. The angle they did with Rhea's shoulder, I thought it made sense, though some of their workarounds for it were a bit interesting. I don't know if I was a huge fan of the whole like ramming her clearly not separated shoulder into the announce desk and then proceeding to complain about it another like 5 or 6 times during the match. But
I honestly thought that was a great visual.
Oh, so gross. Did you see it? Whoa. Pat McAfee was writhing in disgust at the table. So something must
Pat put on his
He was worked, so clearly. Oh, he was worked, that's for sure. I mean, I was a little bit worked too by when she first let out that initial squeal when like I thought there might have been something seriously wrong that went with that shoulder because it was her first match. It's not like she had a warm up or anything. I think even before like WrestleMania, well, granted it wasn't came off of injury, but I mean I feel like even with regardless of whether people are coming off injury or not, you want to give them like one good tune-up match before a big card like that. And Rhea didn't really have anything. I don't even know if she swung so much as a punch before going into the ring at SummerSlam.
I feel like
So
they've
part of
gotten
me was
away
like, well,
from that recently, though. Like the whole tune-up matches post-injury, especially if it's leading into like a PLE or something. I feel like they tried to avoid that. Like Cody, when he came back from his pec injury, didn't have a single match before the Royal Rumble. CM Punk didn't have a match returning from his injury. I think they just put them in through the ringer and the performance center enough to get them fresh, to avoid any sort of risk in a match where there's a little less control and they can't just like pace it differently. But yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah.
but yeah, it was a little touch and go whether it was she was actually injured or not. But once they didn't take the camera off her and they kept they had the guy like right there zoomed in for a good bit. It was pretty safe to say that it was not an actual injury. It was a worked injury, which is fine. Obviously, it makes sense to leverage that because that's what Liv was took her out from that.
Right.
But she popped it back in, and then she didn't, and then she popped it back in again, almost kind of, but not really. It was a lot. I don't know. It didn't hit for me. It hit for you guys. That's cool. Just wasn't for me so much, but
Yeah, I liked it. I think, the first part of the match, it was very squash esque, because Rhea was just dominating, and then having the shoulder injury makes sense. Rhea is a power wrestler, she's got some technical with the prison trap and everything, which the shoulder injury played into that.
yep.
I liked that it was very much she hit the riptide, and Liv probably would have been down for the 3, but she saw the chair and wanted revenge. Dom getting booed while saying, "You don't want to win like that." Can't win the title that way. Makes sense. Everybody hates Dom. And I like that it was Dom who slid the chair back in, and you could see like a smirk on his face after the 3. I gotta give props to Michael Cole and Pat McAfee after that kiss.
You
You
piece of
sorry,
you piece
two
of say
time
it. You piece of shit.
you sorry 2-timing son of a bitch from Michael Cole was great, and then this piece of trash screwed over his dad, and now he's screwed over his mommy as well was fucking great.
Oh man.
Classic.
Dom, I really love Dom's character as like the knockoff 2-bit version of Latino. He, his true dad, which Corey mentioned the custody of Dominic ladder match, which popped me. He also said what would happen if Eddie won, which rest in peace, Eddie Guerrero, but you did die 3 months later, so I don't think that would have been great for Dom either.
Nope.
But as a match, I really enjoyed it. It was a hot start to the show and a very, very hot angle. So, I mean, I really liked it.
Solid match. Good result. More to come on this in a bit. With another match that happens later on in the show. Brandon, you have anything else to add to Liv and Rhea before we move on?
I just like that it slides Dom firmly back into the heel camp again, and I feel like this time he's a lot more comfortable in the role. I feel like he's got a lot more growth to do. I'm glad that he's actually still in a group with the Judgment Day as they are. Like, he's getting a lot better, and I feel like it's been said about Dom. Like, people talk about Logan Paul too, and like about his relative inexperience in the industry compared to like how good he actually is and can be. But Dom, just as a character, he's just such a hateable dude. Like, I mean, he's lovable, hateable, right? Like in this case, you love to hate him.
Yep.
And I feel like it'll be more to see if Dom can continue to back things up in ring. Where, I mean, if you've been watching, if people have been paying attention to stuff, he's definitely been showing a lot of signs of improvement and confidence. I mean, I wouldn't put it out of question if Dom were to start looking at titles again, maybe next year. I mean, this is going to play out, I think, for a little while with him and Rhea and Damien and Liv and all that. But I mean, I feel like this definitely is another notch in Dom's belt, not just for, you know, his track record with the ladies, but in just showing how capable he is as of being a mainstay in WWE.
I could easily see Dom being a mid card title holder. I could see Dom being a tag team champ again with maybe Carlito. Um, there'll be a little bit of time for that to happen. Obviously, with how the belts, who's holding what belts now, and how those stories are progressing. But I agree with you. I could easily see Dom holding another title 2025, even late 2024, depending on how stuff fleshes out. But he's not even really doing a knockoff Eddie Guerrero anymore. He's kind of just in his own lane and he's doing it really well. Um, and you're right too. His ring work has gotten a bit better. He did not get the benefit of being able to work NXT basically at all prior
Even as
to.
NXT North American champion, I don't think he got much NXT time.
No, I think he
Oh, he
defended
didn't.
the title what, three times. And there was like I maybe even had like one other match in filler in there, but I can't recall. But he's a mainstay on the higher mid card now on Monday nights, and the crowd, he always gets huge reactions, and so ride the hot hand while you can, as far as I'm concerned.
All right. And maybe he'll get a little faster in the ring because he's no longer getting pegged by Rhea. So
Oh, come
that's something I've been seeing online. It's
on. Oh, come
made me
on.
laugh quite a bit.
He does seem happier. I'll say that.
I mean, that would make him probably more happy. And Liv's giving him his chicken tendies.
Oh, those chicky tendies.
Congratulations, Dom. You finally took out the butt plug.
Follow this up. Now, this was before the second match, but Damian Priest runs backstage and demands to find out where Dominic is and implies to Finn Balor that he had something to do with it before the guys said they would try and find him. Now, obviously, we kind of know what happened with Finn and Damian later in the show, but do you think it's fair to assume that Finn already had his mind made up prior to that exchange that he was going to turn on Damian, or was that you guys didn't think that was just like the straw that broke the camel's back there? The accusation that it was Finn's fault that.
I think realistically it was probably a bit of both. You know, we found out on Monday that he hated Damien for screwing up his world title match at last year's SummerSlam, and they had the whole "there's no leaders in Judgment Day," and Damien started acting like a leader. But I think getting somebody putting their hands on you is probably going to push you over the edge.
No.
And to be fair, too, Damien had been opening his mouth for weeks prior, talking about how much he's able to stand on his own and how he doesn't even need the Judgment Day around him. So it's not even just diminishing them in like a hierarchical sense; it's diminishing them as, you know, as companions, I guess, for lack of a better word. Like he doesn't even need like them. Period. So doesn't surprise me at all that that would stick in Finn's craw.
Yeah.
But I mean, arguably, you could see him. I know he says no leaders, but considering Finn's history and considering his motives, like you can arguably see Finn as the new leader of the Judgment Day, but he'll never say it.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit. Um, I think they'll lean away from that for at least for a little bit since he's like tag team champions with JD and the other three doesn't really shake out for them to be the leader types. Like certainly not Carlito. I don't think Liv really would need to be a leader of that group either. Um, Dom, yeah, we've already kind of already discussed Dom. He doesn't have the leadership type. They could go down that road a bit later, as you know, if they wanted to do another hypocrite heel on Monday Night Raw. But I think they're fine rolling the way they are for now. And I mean, we're inevitably going to get a match, um, a couple matches out of this, which we'll probably get into again in a little bit once we get to the World Heavyweight Championship result. But it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic kind of evolves in the next few weeks and months, knowing that there's going to be at least a couple payoff matches relating to Judgment Day. Second match was Braun Breaker successfully defeating Sami Zayn and taking the Intercontinental Championship, his first ever main roster title reign, and he did it in 5 minutes and 40 seconds. So if you were listening to the show, I believe Pierce, you had said something about the timeliness of this match.
Called it.
Yep.
Under 10 minutes. Spear him out of his boots. The whole thing with Sammy, he did not get a chance to take him to deep waters because the dogs were out. And that's all that matters.
What's
Could
the
it have
squash,
been
though?
longer? Sure. I think, yeah, I would not call it a squash. Both guys were able to get a decent amount of offense in. Apparently, it was supposed to go 12 minutes, and then they lowered it down to 6. I don't think it needed to be 12 minutes. I think this was a perfect, break in between two pretty decently long matches, especially with somebody like Braun Breaker, whose whole thing is that, he's fast and strong and can be in short bursts, versus Sammy, who needs to take it to deep waters. Welcome to the Breaker era. I'm happy. Let's go.
Brandon?
Yeah, I was very, very pleased with how that match went. I mean, especially too when you consider all the matches on the card. You're right; like it did not have to go 12 minutes. I feel like people would have just started getting tired. I feel like, and I've mentioned this last week too. I feel like the result was kind of a foregone conclusion. I feel like, especially when you have the knowledge of the Steiners being in house, and then coincidentally enough, you also had what appears to be Braun's new flame in Izzy Dame sitting right up next to Papa Rick too. So you knew something was going to happen in benefit of Braun there. And I mean, am I sad that we didn't get the triple threat like I really wanted? Yeah. Does that mean that still can happen down the line? It sure as hell could, though it looks like there's going to be what looks to be a 2 out of 3 falls match that's going to follow this up. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes on Monday. But
did they announce that as 2 out of 3 falls? Did I miss that?
Yeah, I think they announced a 2 out of 3 falls between Sammy and Braun.
Oh, okay.
Once again, Ilya nowhere to be found, which upsetting for me. But I mean, I think this match went exactly the way it should have gone. Didn't need to be a ton of hype behind it. Didn't need to be a ton of story behind it. The match itself did not need to tell a story. Like the story had been told. Like Braun was coming for the Intercontinental Championship. He got it in the fashion you would expect. And I'm excited to see where Braun takes the title. I was very pleasantly surprised at how humble he came off in his post-match interview.
Very surprising. And he pivoted away from that, though, on Monday night. He was not Mr. Nice Guy after that segment on the post-show. But
no, he fell right back into character. But I think it was really cool. I mean, you could tell it definitely meant a lot to him personally outside of kayfabe. Just being able to do that in front of his father, his uncle, and his girl. I mean, it's Cleveland, so you're going to have the dogs barking anyhow, but you could tell they were directed straight at Braun with that one. And I think we were all kind of waiting for Braun to finally get something that he could run with. So I'm glad that he was the one to take up the mantle after Sammy. And this frees up Sammy, like I was saying last week, to start chasing after higher goals. Because I feel like the Intercontinental Championship was kind of making him stagnant. And I would love to see how Sammy develops beyond the mid card. I want to see him in the main event. I want to see him tussling it up with Jay. I want to see him tussling it up with Seth. I want to see him start to actually test the waters in the upper mid card to main event scene.
Well, according to Jey Uso, you are going to see him challenge for the Intercontinental title in his rematch and then take on the Judgment Day to try and get the tag team titles. So you might have to put those top of the card aspirations on hold a little bit.
Did I miss something? Did they say they were going after? I missed Raw this week. Did they say they were going after the tag title, Sammy and Jay?
Jay proposed Sammy to be a two belt champion by winning against Braun Breaker and then them going after Judgment Day. So
Ah,
don't be surprised if we see if they decide to put a tag match at Bash at Berlin, it would probably be that one. Sammy and Jay versus Finn and JD McDonough.
I
Probably
could
the
see
most
it.
logical one at this point, considering whose titles or who the title holders are right now and who their potential opposition would be. So,
I'd be okay with that.
yeah. And then, I mean, there's again going into a little bit of what happened on Raw and pivoting it into how we can talk about Sammy and I guess Jay by proxy because he wasn't on the show. Um, we saw
Which is crazy.
we saw a bunch of crossover on Raw with SmackDown talent, and there's a lot of speculation that those two guys, Sammy and Jay, will end up on SmackDown at some point to keep the Bloodline story going. Do we think that's going to happen anytime soon, or is that going to be a lot closer to War Games that you see one or both of Sammy and Jay on SmackDown?
We need the tribal apology first. They're not going to come until there is a legit apology from Roman Reigns. It doesn't make sense story wise for them to show up and help him.
Well, SmackDown is coming from Tulsa this Friday, and Roman Reigns will be there. They already did confirm that.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that, and we can talk more about Roman later. But as far as Jay and Sammy go, we got a lot of time before War Games, and to answer your question, Johnny, I feel like there's definitely some development we get along the way. I mean, Jimmy's good to go. He can come back at any time. So then you factor him into all of this as well. And I think it's the story, the bloodline's going to take center stage again across both shows, like we had seen in the past. But I mean, that's just kind of what you get, though. Like Roman Reigns coming back was easily one of the biggest things that's happened this year in wrestling. And yeah, I feel like you can't have this obvious schism that's developed between Roman Reigns and the bloodline without factoring Jay and Sammy and then Jimmy, who more recently got betrayed by the bloodline, by Solo specifically. So I think we're definitely starting next week even, or actually rather I should say starting this Friday, we may even start to see some development towards the inevitable clash that those two are going to have.
Yep.
Speaking of OG bloodline versus new bloodline.
Yep. And then with Braun Breaker, any thoughts who his first notable title defense will be after Sammy? Any guesses?
I could see it being Ilya.
Brandon?
Yeah, part of me wants to say Ilya. You could also make a case for Chad Gable even. I mean, I don't know how much more they're going to lean into. I feel like this kind of the story between Gable and the Wyatt Six is, I want to say concluded. I don't know what more they can really draw from it, but you can kind of have a revamped Chad Gable who now realizes that Sami Zayn no longer holds a title, try and present a new threat to the current title holder in Braun Breaker and try to regain something that he had been chasing vehemently for the first half of this year.
What's the name
I
of their
feel like
faction?
Gable's
American owned? I don't know.
American made.
American
man.
made,
I
thank
wish
you.
I could. I wish I could sing the theme song right now. Hogan's WCW theme song was also called American Made. It's the same song that Abyss had when he got that power ring that Hogan granted to him back in mid 2000s or mid
Oh,
2010s TNA there. Oh,
so bad.
I wish I could belt it out for you boys, but that was the first thing that came to my mind, and it kind of tripped a string in my heart, you know. But I think the name itself is badass. A lot of people are like, "Oh, it's an L for Gable and the Crees," blah, blah, but I think it's a good direction for him. I think it's a good brand for him.
Faction name's fine. The theme music is theme music, kind of
It'll grow.
par for
It'll
the
grow
course
on you,
for
I think.
most of. They could have leveraged the "You Suck" in there a little bit better, knowing they're making a new song and trying to get Gable
They,
in that vein. I don't think they did a good enough job of that, but the crowd tried to find a way.
yeah,
The
the
crowd
crowd
was hot
tried.
on Monday. That was a
Yeah.
great Raw crowd in Baltimore, but
It was a
you know,
great Raw in general.
yeah, yeah, we can get into that too once we cover our bases here. But the name that I expect to see Braun Breaker, challenge Braun Breaker, especially knowing that there's a European pay-per-view coming up. I would think it's going to be Sheamus. I think
Hmm.
Sheamus stakes his
I'm
claim to
about it.
the IC title. You know, he has reason to do it. It's going to be on a European event where there'll be more hype towards it, and it's a veteran guy that helps put Braun over in his first big title defense. So I'm going to throw one out for old Shamey there.
Now, you think Pete Dunne's going to factor into that?
He could. He could. I mean, Pete Dunne. It's interesting. That's because Pete Dunne was on American Bash last night and beat Trick Williams. So clearly, they got to have some gas in the tank for him. Um, so whether that blows over in time for them to have a match or not, I don't know. But I could easily see Pete Dunne, the bruiserweight, get involved there too.
I want to see him. I love Pete Dunne. He's so good.
The
He's
the
been
mid
good for so long.
the mid card on Raw is just so loaded right now. It's great to have so many viable options of people that could challenge Braun for the IC title.
Well,
Uh,
it'll do so much more to build Braun as a star, too.
yeah, and I don't
Yeah.
see him losing that title prior to Netflix. Like
No way.
No.
so,
No, he's one of their boys. Absolutely not.
yeah. Third match of the evening, Logan Paul successfully defeats, or sorry, is defeated. Sorry, excuse me. He is defeated and loses to LA Knight, who is the new United States champion. Logan Paul came out with MGK, Machine Gun Kelly, who Michael Cole almost called MJ something until he caught himself. But 12-minute match, nothing really spectacular in this match, I don't think. Result that everyone kind of expected. What are your guys' thoughts on LA Knight being the new U.S. champion, Logan Paul not being U.S. champion, the match, and what comes next?
Well,
I mean,
if you're gonna say nothing spectacular, I mean that moonsault was pretty spectacular.
Okay, I'd say the match as a whole, it was a good spot, but
I thought the match was great. I thought this was maybe LA Knight's best WWE match to date.
and how much of that was as a result of Logan Paul, too, which is another kind of a freaky thing to think about. You know, speaking to what I was saying earlier about Logan Paul's relative inexperience in wrestling. And then whenever people build up the talk about him and, bitch about how he's never there and bitch about how he's not as involved as these guys on the road, he shows up and he puts people to shame. He shuts people up. They can chant all they want in Cleveland that he still sucks, but they know in their hearts what they just saw. I mean, is if it prompted something out of them like that, then they, in their heart of hearts, they know he's doing something right. In spite of all the things they can argue that he had done wrong recently. But I was actually surprised, given the state of affairs, that they actually gave him that much time to work and they let him go that many different directions in the match. I mean, a lot. It was at the end of it. It was all to LA Knight's benefit because he eventually won. And thankfully he did, because I've been saying about LA Knight, he's gone way too long without gold. That man's been doing so much work. He's been putting himself over, and
It's also LA Knight's first
he's not.
title on the main roster, and he's been there a lot longer than Braun. So
Yeah,
LA
well, his
Knight's first title in
title in
WWE.
WWE.
I guess if you don't count the $1 million belt, which he won in
And I
August.
don't.
Nope.
Oh, but this was the perfect trade-off. This was, I mean, even if none of the stuff was happening and there, Logan Paul wasn't a walking PR nightmare right now, I still feel like this would have been the time for Logan to drop the belt, and not even considering the fact that he was in his hometown and you have that whatever curse associated with that. You can ask Johnny Gargano about that too.
Oh,
But yeah, that was tragic. His pop shop just burned down too, and then he gets his lifeless body draped over by the bloodline, taking his titles in 28 days.
Logan Paul did what he had to do. Like he took the title from Rey Mysterio, and he was the best option to beat Rey Mysterio at that point. Did he defend the title enough? No, and I think we kind of all know that. But this is not really new for part timers to take that approach. And Logan Paul is a part timer, and the whole objective was to have a whole lot of attention on that U.S. title, which there was a lot of attention on that U.S. title outside of WWE circles. Like, you had face to face with Donald Trump is still, you see it on social media and all the other spots that he had it in. Like, it did its job for what it was. And when Logan was asked to compete, again, to your guys' points, stellar in the ring for, I don't even want to say for as little experience that he has. So I don't even think that's fair anymore to like say about him. He's just a great talent in the ring at this point. I don't want to put any caveats on it. He's very athletic, very charismatic in the ring. He has a huge bag of tricks he can pull out, and he showed it again with LA Knight. So he'll have his time again. We might not see him until the Rumble. We might not see him until Saudi. We don't know. But
yeah, I don't think he should be on TV till Crown Jewelish, which I honestly probably should do post Crown Jewel after his fucking tweet. I mean, that's just not great PR.
I think it kind of makes you wonder too.
Oh, go ahead.
I mean, you think people will still be talking about this come Crown Jewel? Because that's what, November?
no.
I mean, how much do you think?
It's because of where that
we have a lot coming up.
Pay-per-view is. It's where that PLE
sure.
is. That'll be brought up if they bring Logan back for it.
I'm just saying, this is a wrestling podcast, but we got a lot of stuff happening in the world prior to November. Lots going on. It's 2024, remember? So
people will remember it, but it's not going to be a big deal, honestly.
It's not going to be it will definitely not have the focus that it does right now.
Right. Well, we'll see what happens.
I mean, we will. Yeah, I'm sure they'll bring it up and they'll stick it in his craw by that point too to make people remember what a D-bag he can be. But I think he's definitely gonna. I think Saudi is. I mean, and they're paying a lot of money for WWE to be there too. They'll bring whoever they need to bring there. For Christ's sake, they brought Shawn Michaels out of retirement for that, where they had him team with Triple H to face the Brothers of Destruction.
No, stop talking about it. I don't want to think. Shawn Michaels retired in 2010, and nothing else happened after that.
I'm just saying that's Saudi magic. All they got to do, throw a little extra cha-ching out there, and they can get whatever. So it wouldn't surprise me if we saw Logan Paul come Crown Jewel again.
We will. I think that's probably the right time to bring him back. LA Knight, any ideas who his first defense will be against? That hasn't really been teased much at all. But
honestly, it really doesn't matter for SmackDown. Could be Andrade, could be Carmelo Hayes. I mean, when Dragon Lee comes back, could be him. Or is he on Raw, technically?
I think he's on Raw with the LWO, yeah?
I think so. Yeah, now that you mention it. I just haven't seen him much on Raw because of the injury, but I think you're correct on that.
Santos
It
Escobar.
realistically could be, yeah, Santos. It could be any of those guys. It really doesn't matter. It's not as deep as Raw's mid card, but I think if they kind of lean into the SmackDown as the land of opportunity, you could see some bangers come out of this reign. What are you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, you're right with the depth, but I think Santos is probably the easiest one to, again, someone to give him a reasonable match, put him over. I could also see it being with our boy, a very big fan we all are on the podcast of him, but Baron Corbin.
Hell yeah!
Speak for yourself, Donnie.
It could be
Don't even say
Austin.
his name.
I could be Austin Theory.
He's going to need something to do after he spanks. Excuse me, Lord. I was so overcome
we
by
got none of that. I heard none
fandom.
of that. You might want to repeat that one, but
Oh yeah. Well, let me give her a go. No, but I think that you're saying the SmackDown mid card is pretty wide open, and I think it's great. I think a lot of the guys are happy that LA Knight's champion, if for no other reason than it gives them all additional opportunity to vie for something that actually means something on SmackDown. Because you've had like two Andrade, and Carmelo matches, and they haven't really been for much of anything other than showmanship. Which, like, I mean, it works in cases like Sheamus and Cesaro, right back when they had their series. Plenty of other matches that they've had in the past where it's just been about athleticism and proving who's better. But I think it's great now that they actually have a viable option in the United States Championship to gun for. Because let's be honest, like Cody Rhodes, there is no chance of him losing the WWE Championship or even being threatened by anyone for his WWE Championship until I want to say Rollins or till Reigns and Rhodes 3 happens. Personally, that's where I see that going. I think that's the next time that Cody has any sort of threat towards his reign. So with that in mind, now that you have the U.S. title that's open, I guess, if you want to call it that, then you have a lot more potential excitement in the title scene overall on SmackDown, which desperately needs that. And especially with its move to USA Network coming up next month already, which kind of surprised me. They were only going to take a month with this, but things keep moving along. And they gotta, right. I mean, if they're moving to USA, then they gotta have the US title present on the show. I would think.
Right.
Yep.
Marketing 101, boys.
Going to our next match then, I guess. Talking about. Sorry.
Would you be all right if I gave some flowers to LA Knight real quick?
Sure. Go ahead.
I mean, the guy's been grinding for so long. He almost got a death sentence when he was called up because of a senile predator being called Max Dupree. He came back as LA Knight after Vince left and organically got himself over. And I really love the finish of the match, the brass knuckles from MGK, which, spoiler for later, but if KO was at the arena and MGK was there, I would assume that guy would have fucking left because he's probably still scared of him. The finish was great. You get he pops Knight with the knuckles. Logan goes for the buckshot, and which annoyingly he does do better than Hangman Page. I think Hangman hits harder, but Logan is way more fluid with it. And it gets countered into the BFT, and Logan sold it like he died. I mean, that last minute and a half was fantastic. So that's me glazing LA Knight, and I think there's really only one last thing to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume Brandon is saying yeah as well.
Sorry, I had to sit there. Yeah.
Coughing into the abyss. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Match number 4. Nia Jax defeats Bailey to become WWE Women's Champion. This is her second title reign in WWE. Is that
Yep.
correct?
First one was when she won it at WrestleMania 34 from Alexa Bliss, and then lost it to Alexa after she cashed in at Money in the Bank, because women's Money in the Bank holders can't hold it for longer than a day until now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tiffany Stratton and Io Sky.
And she was tag team champion for a bit with Shayna Baszler, but first title since she's returned. Again,
Well,
not a surprising result. This match went 12 and a half minutes. Thoughts on the match? Thoughts on Nia as new champion? Thoughts on the cash-in attempt that didn't actually count?
I believe this. I love this match. I thought it was great. Nia earned the title. She was somebody with a bad reputation that was probably not wanted back, and she upgraded her game. I thought Bailey looked really good in defeat, which, like I said last week, with the WWE Women's title, mid-reign, really good final match. I really liked Bailey powering out of the Annihilator. She's the first one to kick out of it, but it really wasn't a kick out. She had to bench press her off, and I thought that was awesome.
What I thought was awesome, and it's something I always knew, there was some power in those glutes, boys. That power bomb that she hit on Nia Jax. I thought it was just going to be a straight fall over, but she took her and stood with her for a bit there, moved her out to center ring, and just planted her. I was very, very impressed with that.
That
it looked unreal.
Yeah.
We heard it's Tiffy time, but as a storytelling device, this was so great because they made it that it was a distraction planned by Tiffy and Nia. It wasn't Tiffany trying to screw over Nia. They had planned this together, and I really liked that.
That was very novel. I thought that was great. I thought they swerved me. They worked me on that one. And it definitely played into in general too. And I thought that's something I kind of observed throughout the match, because I think people are going to try and treat it like the quintessential piss break. You could tell people were kind of sleeping through it at the early onset of the match. But then as Nia and Bailey are working, they start to wake people up, and then you hit that nail with Tiffany Stratton coming in there around the end. And then you have Nia just absolutely devastating Bailey to win the match. I think it surpassed my expectation. It actually was the surprise match for me. Like I said, I thought LA Knight and Paul was a surprise match too, given everything. But Bailey and Nia, I thought was going to be pretty mid for the most part. Not just in the status of the match in the card, but also the status of the match overall. But I think it just sucks too, for the fact that it's one of those matches that show what Bailey's reign could have been as women's champion. I feel like there's, in spite of the relatively little storytelling we got around Bailey and Nia for that match, I feel like there was a lot of intrigue and a lot of story they told in the match that definitely, as the match went on, pulled you in. And I wish there was more of that since WrestleMania, when Bailey became champ for the first time. I wish we could have built this up more, especially considering how over she was after winning the title, but then gradually dwindling in appeal and intrigue from there.
Yeah, I think that's not even so much Bailey's fault as it is just the heels on SmackDown on the women's division were kind of lacking, outside of Tiffany, who was too early, Nia, who had her moment at SummerSlam. Chelsea Green, Piper Niven, those are not people who should be posing serious threats to Bailey.
That Piper and Bailey match was great. They had a really good match at Clash.
Sure, they did, but that was to get her on the card, and it certainly wasn't to drive any sort of story, and it certainly wasn't to put any sort of intrigue on who could win.
Right.
Right. I feel like Bailey was an interchangeable good champion during her reign. And there are plenty of champions, even like Sami Zayn, right, who have had good matches with titles. But beyond that, like you remember the match, you don't remember necessarily the reign overall. I feel
Yeah,
like
it's
this is
not
where
a
Bailey's at
memorable
too.
reign really at all for her, which is a shame, um, because she was the pivot out of damage control. She was getting great reactions, but yeah, this reign just didn't hit, and it's unfortunate for Bailey. We'll see what comes next with her. I have no idea actually what really is going to come next for Bailey. I don't know what they do with her. Um, Probably give her a rematch that she'll probably lose.
I would
Hmm.
hope she lose. Otherwise,
Nia, if they do the obvious champions rematch, Nia will be kept busy there for a little bit, and then will we see Tiffany turn on her? We'll start seeing Bianca and or Jade go after her? Will we see a returning Charlotte Flair go after her? Thoughts?
I feel like that's probably the likeliest option. What you just mentioned there, Charlotte Flair. And especially when, Charlotte's kind of evoked this queen imagery and portrayed a queen and projected that image for as long as she has. And then with Nia now kind of being still holding on to her Queen of the Ring title, I feel like that's going to get played into it to some degree. And, right, like how many other female faces do you have on the SmackDown roster that would pose any threat, kind of like how Bailey does?
Bianca's the
I
only
can,
other one.
but then
Technically
she seems to
Jade,
be.
but they're not
I
going to
mean,
do
yeah,
that.
but then how focused on are Bianca and Jade on being a tag team and on getting the belts back? And then if they don't get the belts back, then what's that going to look like? Do they continue to team? Do they support each other as faces? Does one of them turn heel?
I would expect Jade to go heel.
I mean, she is a very natural heel.
Yeah.
I
But then you
really
have
like her
Bianca,
in
who's,
AEW.
oh yeah, she was great. And I 100% agree with you. She's a very, very, I feel like she'd be a lot more comfortable as a heel, which is not trying to pander to people. But again, it begs the question, like, does that kind of take away from Bianca's prospects of chasing after the women's championship if she's going to be wrapped up in Jade?
Maybe that's
If
where the
that
turn
happened to be.
happens.
I mean, if we're calling shots real early here, I kind of expect well, one of those two, Bianca or Jade, to win the Rumble and challenge will probably be champion, probably be Rhea Ripley, um, come WrestleMania time. So if we get Bianca versus Rhea at WrestleMania, um, it
I
could
don't want to
be.
see Rhea lose to Bianca.
I mean, it could be Bianca turning heel at that point too. You never know, right? Like she's been overdue for that change in character, and luckily she got to buy some time with teaming up with Jade to kind of hide the storyline elements for her a little bit, but it was a bit of a slog just getting through superheroine uh, Bianca for a while there. So it could be her that'll
Very
turn
much
heel.
John Cena Bianca there for a while, and she was getting booed, and rightfully so.
So
Um,
we'll see what happens with it. There's still again the same thing with the mid card on the men's side, the women's side as a whole, both tag team and singles. It's tough to call right now because there's not a whole lot of options there to present themselves in ways that the story has driven it that way. Obviously, there's still a lot of talent there, but not obvious in the direction that story is going. So we'll probably see some of that on SmackDown this coming Friday. Um,
cool.
Anything else on women's championship match before we move on?
Shout out Kevin Nash. One of the two power bombs that Nia hit was a jackknife, and I'm glad that Nia won because it legitimized the Queen of the Ring tournament for a
Yeah,
first time tournament. We didn't really
second
talk about it, but
second time tournament.
well, Queen's Crown, Queen of the Ring. I mean, it wasn't.
Can't forget Queen Zelina.
Put some respect on Queen Zelina. Come on now.
Mhm.
Uh, whatever you guys want to think, I will not put respect on something that was stupid. None of those matches went over 2 minutes, so I think
Thank-
it's understandable to not respect that.
Hashtag thank you, Vince. One more thing. Actually, I did want to talk about with Nia, and there's some speculation where it makes sense to feud her with Charlotte Flair. If you remember back in her last stint in WWE, or first stint in WWE, whatever you want to call it, she had that very strange match with Charlotte Flair on Raw. You guys remember that match where they literally seemed like they were beating the hell out of each other?
Yeah, they were shooting. It wasn't that they weren't. There was legitimate shooting in that match.
Between Charlotte and who?
Nia.
Nia.
Oh,
You're
just
gonna
like
say something
heaming the
about
crap out
holes.
of her.
Yeah, it was a Thunderdome match, right?
Nia said it, not me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
We don't
tapped in the memory banks there. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a match between those two where they're just beating the hell out of each other, and there were some stiff shots in that match. So I'm curious if there's going to be some callback to that if they bring Charlotte back, because that was a weird one to watch. That was around the same time when Charlotte and Becky also had that issue with the title swap. There Charlotte threw the belt on the ground, and it was a really messy time that when Charlotte was there. But wonder if
He was just spending too much time with her husband.
could be. We'll see how that goes.
Now she'd be spending all the time she wants with her husband.
Yeah, he's on SmackDown now for a reason. So,
Well,
fifth match. It was a very hyped match going into the event. Some could have easily said it if not for the return of somebody else. This could have easily been the main event. Drew McIntyre defeated CM Punk in 17 minutes with Seth Rollins as the special guest referee. Thoughts?
Cinema. Fucking cinema.
I thought it was hilarious when they caught a still of Seth's shot in the ref cam where he's looking at CM Punk, and then there were memes floating around saying Jack Perry POV, and it's just Punk just growling and sneering.
Oh, that's great.
I
saw that too.
I sped up when I saw it. That was fucking hilarious.
Seth was a very good special guest referee, and that ref cam that they used for him, they used that very well. That spot where Punk's smashing Drew's head into the ring post, and Punk is like, "Is this legal? Is this legal?" And Seth's like, "Yeah, okay, I guess." And then he just starts tying up his shoelaces, and you can see the camera view of him tying up his shoes, and all you can hear in the background is Drew's head banging off the steel steps on the outside. Seth added a lot to that match, more than most special guest referees add to matches. Certainly more than any in recent memory that I can recall.
I feel like if there's one thing I can critique about that, I feel like they made the ode to SummerSlam 97 a little bit too obvious. Not only with the spot, but then you have Corey Graves on commentary literally calling out, how close it was when, what was it, Seth almost hit Drew in the head with the chair. Or did he almost hit Punk in the head with the chair in the corner there?
He almost hit Punk.
And it was like almost like a step-for-step replication of like what Punk did or what Shawn had done back in 97, where he took a swing and a miss at Brett and then he nailed Undertaker. At least I'm pretty sure that's how that went, and it wasn't vice versa.
It did.
But yeah, it was like almost like an obvious, and I feel like that's what they were going for, but like it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know, I feel like they didn't need to make it so obvious. I feel like they could have stuck with the subtleties.
I agree with you. Sometimes you can just let the moment be the moment and not have to tie it back to everything. I don't think it was malicious intention, but
no,
it was pretty obvious what it was.
And I hate to crap on the match in any way, shape, or form because, I agree the match itself was terrific, but I feel like it's just another one of those matches where, and maybe wrestling in general has come to this point where you're starting to see more like greatest hits type matches being played, like cover band type matches where, I mean, you've seen, look at, shout out to Promo Joe. He catches this on his channel on YouTube all the time where you see guys like FTR paying homage to the Hart Foundation in their matches with a lot of spots that they do. And then Now, in this case, where you have like SummerSlam '97, very replicable spots, camera angles, all that. Um, I feel like that's a lot of what you see in wrestling is like, I mean, because, right, there's a lot that's still being done and there's a lot that's already been done too. So you run the risk of seeing something again, regardless. But I feel like there's kind of this intent about it now where you see a lot of spots being done as kind of homage to some of the better matches and maybe some of the undersung matches that have been done in the past to kind of show, the wrestlers of yesteryear respect and to kind of show the inspiration that these new guys took, like FTR being an obvious one, Punk being another obvious one, wearing the pink and black as an obvious nod to Bret Hart in his first match back, and in a match again that replicates very similarly a famous match that he had many many years ago.
I'm gonna be a devil's advocate to you guys. I know the comments in cinema not wanting to criticize the match. I want to criticize the match for a bit. You had two guys that hated each other. You had a special guest referee that let them go. It had a very long leash with them, and this match wasn't violent enough. I'm not expecting AEW levels of blood and excessiveness, but like, come on.
Blood and guts, would you say?
Sure, sure. But
To
these
coin a
were
phrase.
two guys that were supposedly supposed to hate each other and want to kill each other. I didn't see that in this match.
It was so weird to see Drew literally saying he was going to stop Punk's heart the Monday before the match, and then after the match happens, he's content enough just to pin him 1, 2, 3 in the ring and steal his bracelet. There was no like beating after the fact. There wasn't even much beating during the match.
Nope.
It was just kind of
Go ahead,
a
sorry.
couple of shenanigans. Most of the brutality, I would say, occurred in the beginning of the match, and then I don't know what happened from there, but
they had that hockey fight spot, and then it became cinema. I would agree. I thought we were going to see some more violence. I'm honestly okay with it because this was story-wise one of the best matches for a contained story, because if you really look at it, there was one babyface in the match, and it wasn't Punk, it wasn't Drew, it was Seth. And Punk, he was just so laser focused on that bracelet, as he should. The 15 cents and trash, but it's the intent and everything having to do with that bracelet. As soon as Drew took it out, it became it made it feel more important than the fucking AEW TNT title. You know what I mean? It was more important than some title belts in matches.
It's funny that you say that Seth was kind of the only babyface. I would argue that in this, like, it almost felt like Drew was more of a babyface because those two, CM Punk and Seth, they let their egos get in their way throughout the match. Like Seth was constantly talking about how he's in charge. This is his match. This is his company. This is his ring. Like that's not very babyface at all. And it was Punk who actually attacked Seth at the end of the day. Obviously, I'm not calling Drew a baby face. This is like straight up three guys who are just been on the edge the entire time, and Drew played by the book for most of it, honestly, and he also won.
Right, and I liked that there were multiple visual pins, like because Seth was number one, partially complacent. He didn't want to be there. He just was told he had to be there. I really liked the Sabu Pants comment from CM Punk. He's the fucking best.
We got another good comment from him on Monday too regarding Seth's
Yeah.
outfit. So.
I ain't your Huckleberry. Which Seth was wearing a legitimate Hangman Page outfit. He has worn something almost exactly like that.
Yeah.
I really liked the sells of the GTS from both Drew and Seth. I thought, sometimes with Punk's GTS, it can kind of look iffy, but they both looked really, really good on Saturday. I liked that he kept getting madder and madder at Seth with CM Punk, and just like Drew at WrestleMania, he took his eye off the ball because of that bracelet and kick to the dick, a Claymore, which I really liked Punk's sell of that second Claymore. It wasn't just a back bump that everybody takes. It was more like a flash knockout in an MMA fight, which if you get kicked in the face, chances are you're probably going to fall like that more than falling on your ass. And I'm excited for what's next. I thought that maybe we were going to see Seth Punk at Berlin, but then Seth died on Monday.
Yes, he did.
Tsunami. Oh man,
It's funny because there's a lot of
talk about a way to
commentary.
set up a star.
Seth came out in that segment on Monday. Just jumping ahead a little bit here, but a lot of chatter. He got the Sheamus treatment when Sheamus came back, and people made some commentary about how he looks. And I saw some comments on what's Becky feeding him with his belly looking the way that he did, and we better believe that Big Bronson Reed definitely flattened his belly after that because oh my goodness, 6 tsunamis. That
Yeah,
was
you get hit
Can
in
you
the
just
stomach by a meat castle like that, you're gonna
meat
hurt. Sorry,
the
Brandon.
meteor? No, he was looking out for Seth's career in that case. You gotta flatten your boy out.
Yep.
I mean, they both win, right? Seth gets svelte, and Bronson's got a moment that's going to last for as long as you can remember. I mean, I remember the last time I've seen a big man. I feel like it's risky enough when you have a big man doing one splash, let alone 6. I couldn't believe it as I just kept watching him, like, oh, he's going up again.
Yep. That puts him on the
I
map.
like that. I like that the security in that were just like, well, what the fuck are we gonna do? I
We're
guess
not
we're
going to
just gonna
stop
let.
him.
It's that meme where it's like, guess I'll die.
So I don't know if we get Drew and Punk again at Bash at Berlin unless they want to give Punk a second match just to make the third match of Bad Blood. But
Well, apparently, Bad Blood is gonna be main evented by Punk and Drew and Hell in a Cell. They can keep this going till then.
yeah, I guess that takes away the having Bronson get involved kind of takes away my idea about the triple threat they could have done. But if they want, if they,
Honestly, sorry, Donnie. Honestly, I'm
go.
okay with it because they should hold Seth and Punk for a bigger show.
Yeah,
Keep that till the Rumble.
that's exactly what I was going to say. If their objective there is to keep them separate so they can get their Mania match, um, then that's fine. It's getting Bronson involved that way too. That'll do him some good. I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't know what Bronson does after that too, because if whether he wins or loses, I don't know if he's going to be in a. He could be another challenger for Braun Breaker, but I don't see him being a challenger for Gunther. But
I want to see that match. I want some fucking meat. I want to see some meat slapping.
Meat slapping at a higher level. Their match for the Intercontinental Championship was really good too, from what I remember. One of the bigger challenges that Gunther got during that reign.
it was a good match.
So I could,
It was a good match. I just don't know if they again the whole heel versus heel foregone conclusion who's going to win match. Like they really try and avoid those.
well,
So
especially now since Gunther's probably going to be leaning more into his heeldom, being world heavyweight champion.
yeah. So I could see them keeping them apart for a while, but the match was fine. I was a little bit let down on the physicality of the match. I do get that it's CM Punk's first match back after an injury. You might want to keep him a little bit protected. I get that, but a little bit of a letdown. The storytelling was bang on though, so I guess that kind of negates that a fair amount. And I
Well, it
guess
was
we'll
his first match too, after a decade being gone in WWE. So, like, you figure it's not going to be his best match, his first match back, but it definitely gives people a taste of what we can expect to see from him going forward. And I think that match accomplished that, at least, if nothing else.
yeah, Punk looked fine. He looked fine in that match. He did what he had to do. He didn't look overly gassed. I saw some commentary online saying he had no gas in the tank. I don't think that was true. I think he was serviceable. I think with CM Punk, in all honesty, and I don't know if I've talked about it with you guys though, but you're never gonna really see CM Punk put on a 5-star match anymore at this point in his career. I don't think he's got
Nah.
outside of maybe one match that he's had in AEW that was very notable, the dog collar match. Um, I don't think you're gonna see absolute bangers out of CM Punk. He's more of a storytelling guy, and that's fine. That's what people want to see out of him. So I'm not too bothered by his cardio in matches like these.
I mean, I thought the match did what it needed to. Drew needed the win. Punk got some comeuppance. Seth looked dejected leaving. He did not want to be there. And I mean, where we go from here is just more murder. We already saw a murder on Raw, so
Yep. Moving on to the penultimate match of the evening. Gunther defeats Damian Priest to become the new World Heavyweight Champion. 16 minutes, 40 seconds, with some help from Finn Balor, who turned on Damian Priest by not even hitting Damian Priest at all, but saving Gunther from the 3 count. And Gunther is now your new World Heavyweight Champion. Thoughts on the match?
Match of the night for me.
That was a banger
meat
match.
slapping.
Yeah.
I thought it delivered in every aspect that you would have ever wanted it to. It developed in the match itself and the quality it developed. It delivered in story, particularly at the end there, which was kind of confusing to me because if you can play back Finn interfering categorically in the match to affect the outcome, how do you not determine a disqualification right then and there? Unless they already said it was going to be no disqualification from the outset. You know what I mean? Because if it's up on the screen, everybody can see it, including Damien, including the ref. You don't want a disqualification in the match like that. But then I'm like, how does it not? How do you not call Damian Priest the winner by disqualification there? I don't know. That was one thing that kind of
Or how do
raised
you
an
not at
eyebrow from
least,
me.
if the ref sees that after the fact, just throw Finn out of ringside?
Yeah.
Right.
I'll agree to disagree on that. But let's just say Priest watching it on the monitor on replay, like they're letting people be fucking smart. Like instead of why are you doing this to me? How could you? You're my best friend. No, he saw something and then he got pissed. He didn't have to wait a day. I really liked that. I would agree. This is my match of the night. This is awesome.
Well, and we've said it before too about just how visibly you could tell how much Damien and Gunter both worked from early in their careers on just to be in that spot. And they both had something to prove to each other and to themselves in that match. And it just came out like I think they just agreed that we were just going to tear into each other and just bang the shit out of each other in this match. And it was as good as any Gunter match I've ever seen among some of Gunter's better matches. But it was definitely the best Damian Priest match that I've ever seen. I mean,
Over Bad Bunny?
And that match had a specific aura to it.
Yeah, I mean, and Bad Bunny is an outlier kind. Bad Bunny is like an asterisk kind of match. Like I was more surprised for how good Bad Bunny did in that, but it was kudos to Damian Priest as well for being able to carry him through that match. And I think that's really what was kind of what pulled the trigger on Triple H to finally taking the chance and being like, in the long term, okay, let's make this guy a star, because he took a celebrity like Bad Bunny, who had maybe like one or two matches prior to that, and carried him, through a main event caliber match in Puerto Rico there. Um, but I mean, just to see like how far Damien had come with this reign, and to see like he's not really losing that much steam in spite of not being a champion anymore. I feel like that really shows a lot of promise in what Damien can still do. I think it'll be really cool to see how he continues to develop over the next year. But I mean, that match though, like that brought out everything that was in Damian Priest. Like that for me was like, okay, they made the right choice and put in the belt on him to start with. And I was concerned that he was going to be like a real quick flash in the pan kind of champ that, the kind of guy that people would just be like, oh yeah, well that happened, and then forget about it. And I'm hoping that's not the case going forward with Damian Priest, because he's obviously very talented. And to do what he can do, even and I hate to say like at his age, because again, I made the point last week that you have so many guys in WWE and in wrestling in general in their 40s, where you used to think that that's like, oh, like Peepaw is winding down, starting to consider where he's going to buy his retirement home.
Vince did not like people over the age of 40 despite being in his fucking 70s. And, I mean, look at how fucking Damien worked. I would say he's been pretty underrated for a long time as a worker. And he showed out. He made Gunther bleed. That was pretty cool.
Oh, that was great. That visceral imagery of Gunther just taking the blood off his chest and just like washing his face with it. That was great. I loved it.
In my opinion, Gunther is the most unique and best wrestler in the world. There's no one like him. For best wrestler, you got MJF, Will Ospreay, Cody Rhodes, whoever else you may want to say, but Gunther is number one. Everyone who steps in the ring with him immediately becomes on his level. And I mean, I love that he can beat you with the most simple things. He's beating people with chops, the sleeper, powerbomb, the splash, the last symphony, Emerald Flosion, the clothesline. Like, he's the best wrestler in the world. He's now the world champion. I did write down world champion in German. If you guys will indulge me in attempting this. Gunther defeated Damian Priest to become the Weltschwig Richtmeister.
The Richtmeister?
Well, I felt something ancestral kind of stir up in me there, Pierce.
Thank you for indulging me, boys.
Mein Blut.
Donnie, do you have any other thoughts on it?
It's a shame that Damien didn't get his clean win. He never got his clean win. I mean, I'm not surprised by the results. I was the one who was most confident in Gunther beating Priest. I didn't think the idea of them running back a rematch at Bash at Berlin made a lot of sense. So, and having the full implosion of the Judgment Day kind of just icing on the cake there makes sense. I think them going right into Gunther now, having Randy Orton challenge him in Berlin, I think is a great idea. I think that's
didn't see that coming.
Very good first title defense. Gives Randy something to do. Keeps Damian Priest away from Gunther because he's going to be, busy with other things.
Being a terror twin.
Yes, being a terror twin, which I would also expect to hypothetically be a match. Now, it's a little bit weird that you would, your tag match would be, if they do a mixed tag match, it would be Liv and Dom versus Rhea and Damien, despite Finn being the one who screwed over Damien, but still
I think it's going to be a 6-man tag, a mixed tag, And I think that sixth person, that third team member for the Terror Twins, is going to be Jey Uso, because Jay knows that Rhea is legitimately single and ready to mingle now, and he's going to tell Mommy, hey, or whatever he said.
It's interesting. Didn't think of that. I was too busy zeroed in on him and Sammy. But that's a good point. It could be a six man tag. They'd have to try and get Jay back in there again enough to justify it at this point. So they'll probably have to do a little bit of work on that.
It's Jey Uso. He's the most over guy in the company.
Yeah, he can just eat his way
pretty
anyway,
large
right?
margin. Yeah, he can.
It'll be enough for
Damien will go
yeah.
way
It'll be enough. It'll be enough for a one-off. I mean, and that's all it's really going to be, right? Because I mean, let's face it, like they all got bigger fish to fry going forward. Like Damien's going to be chasing Finn, Rhea's going to be chasing Liv, Jay's going to be probably pairing it up with Sammy again. He's going to get wrapped up in bloodline business. You know, it'll be a one-off. It'll get done when it needs to get done for that moment, and then it'll move on. But it'll be fun. I think it kicks off a lot of good for all six of them. I mean, right, like Dom betrayed the Judgment Day in very similar pattern to the way that Finn did. You know, you have something screwy happen in the ring there, and then both you had Dom and Finn jumping off, proud of themselves, looking back at their handiwork as it's all unfolding. So, I mean, and Dom was the first one that Damien was looking for in the initial betrayal, too. So if he can hurdle over Dom to get to Finn, I feel like that still serves the story and in the overall narrative of the Judgment Day implosion and everyone ultimately betraying Damien and Rhea.
Agree. We'll see. We'll see how Gunther's reign goes. Damien's, interesting matches throughout his reign. I think it really did build his character and kind of evolve him into what we're going to see next. Hopefully, this face run for him works. It didn't really work all that well for him when he first came on the roster, but again, different management, different presentation, different result. We'll see what happens there. Gunther, he's going to be champion for a while, easily
Yeah.
into WrestleMania. I don't know. Like, you might have a Royal Rumble winner take the title off of him, but
Nope.
it very much depends on who that Royal Rumble winner would be at a minimum. So.
Well, we'll talk about that when it comes too, but I know, like, Punk's going back to Punk a little bit. There's so much, we've said it before too, there's so much that can happen with the Rumble, and there'll be a lot more to talk about when it comes, but I was going to say, tying it back, Punk, I know we were just talking about him, was talking about how he still wants to main event WrestleMania. That's still his dream. So then, I can't see him facing, he'll get his main event. Like, will he get it against Gunther at the risk of, costing Gunther a World Heavyweight Championship reign? I don't think so. So, but right, that'll be more to
probably take a loss in that match.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's what they're going to do with Punk going forward, But I mean, right? Well, that's more we can talk about in the weeks and months as they progress.
Yep. And then that leads us to our main event. Bloodline Rules. This match was made a Bloodline Rules match on Friday because Cody likes saying yes to people and can't say no. Cody Rhodes does defeat Solo Sikoa in a Bloodline Rules match. Almost half an hour. It's 29 minutes, 10 seconds. He won with the Crossroads after a returning Roman Reigns comes back, and to the surprise of nobody, Superman punch and spears the fake bootleg tribal chief of Solo Sikoa.
Coming back with his WrestleMania 40 theme,
which I'm not as big of a fan of. I do like his original one a bit more, but I love this one warm up to me a little bit.
This is babyface tribal chief though, so needs to change it a little bit. But let's talk about this, boys. It took 10 years for Roman Reigns to get a babyface pop, and he came in. hit the Superman punch, huge pop for that, and that ooh-ah could have fucking hit on the Richter scale. But before we get more into Roman coming back, I think we should talk about the match beforehand.
Yep. So we had the whole. Okay, so pre-match, we have the guys coming out. Cody walks out with Pharaoh. Apparently, this was Pharaoh's last ever road trip. He explained this in the post show that he's 13 years old and needs to spend more time at home. But Cody has another dog, I think, that is going to be traveling with him now. I didn't catch that dog's name, but I did catch that Cody called him a jobber.
Enhancement dog.
Enhancement dog, yeah. So, well, we'll see Cody with a new dog. Maybe not as much merch as with Pharaoh's. I don't even know if I've seen a picture of Cody's other dog, but we also
Randy
art.
posted it's a little Pomeranian.
Okay. Oh yeah. Well,
Oh God.
that's not a majestic Cody.
0 buys.
Yeah. And we saw Arn Anderson
I'm not.
for the first time. Sorry to cut you off there, Brandon, but
No, I'm not popping for the Pomeranian. That's all I wanted to say.
we had an Arn Anderson pump up speech. Are you guys a little surprised
Popping
by
for that though.
I wish he was my dad. No
I was about to
disrespect,
say,
Dad.
I'm gonna quote.
To tie this in, it's my dad's birthday tomorrow too, so I hope he never hears me say that. Oh shit! I'm gonna eat that later.
Quote your tweet from when we were live tweeting this, which was our first time live tweeting. I did a little live tweeting for Raw too. So if you're listening, check us out. Follow us on social media. He didn't pull out the Glock, and
no
sad.
It's okay. You could do that in
Not gonna lie,
Call
I
of
was
Duty Modern
hoping-
Warfare 3 with Cody, which I did buy. I did buy Cody as an operator for that. But anyways.
Oh god, he looks better in that game than he does in the WWE 2K24.
Yeah, but his voice clips are terrible. Rhea's are much better than his. Oh man. Sorry, but carry on about Arn.
I'm happy to have him back. Arn, as you know, Cody's coach in AEW, was a fun character for him. I mean, we got literally the greatest promo I've ever heard besides Steiner Math or the Pipe Bomb with the Glock promo. And
Yeah, I'm really sad we didn't see anything in Arn's pocket when Cody walked up to him. I was really kind of hoping, even if it was just a tease, like, oh, is he gonna do it? And then it's, something, totally non-life threatening, but that would have been a great reference.
I know Arn said he had some pull and got some friends for him. We're gonna jump ahead a little bit here, but where are Cody's other friends? He had like 15 people with him celebrating at WrestleMania, and it's been the same two guys for 6 months. Where are his other friends?
They're busy. LA Knight was celebrating, drinking his water. Sammy was licking his wounds after getting speared in half by Braun Breaker. Who else was in that ring that night?
Where was Jay?
Jay was too busy yeeting up Rhea.
I'll give John Cena a pass. He was working on Peacemaker.
You just couldn't see him, that's all.
That's fair. He was probably the one who fucked up Jacob Fatu on the outside.
Could have been.
That's fair, yeah.
Undertaker, too busy doing meet and greets after his one-man dead show, probably.
$2,000 or whatever it costs.
So
apparently it's very expensive. I saw fucking just the regular tickets were already ridiculously expensive when it was at Mania. So
yeah. I mean they're all just predisposed. So instead we got Randy and Kevin again, which okay, well at least Randy's got something going for him for the next little bit. What Kevin Owens is gonna do, I don't know.
Kevin Owens has been fighting the Bloodline since its inception. He has not stopped fighting the Bloodline for 4 fucking years.
I want to see
catch a break.
I want to see Roman ask Kevin for forgiveness before he asks his own family. I think that would be funny.
That's
Something Kevin has to have some kind of payoff in all of this, though. Like, whether it's like near the end or like at the end, like there's got to be something for Kevin at the end of
Well, he
this
did
road.
get the tag title main event at Mania last year. He did get something out of the deal.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
he
I
should have had his
guess.
first Mania main event at WrestleMania 33 when he was the Universal Champion. But you know,
Have you met Goldberg?
Roman.
Have you met Vince
Uh,
McMahon?
no, I don't want to meet him. He'll try and shit on my head or something.
But the match itself, thoughts on the match before we get into the whole interfering spree that these Bloodline Rules matchups have to be now?
I really liked it. I really liked the idea of Solo doing his homework. He caught the drop down fist. He stopped himself from getting power slammed. It seemed like he brought himself up to Cody's level. I do like the idea of if he would have hit the spike, maybe he would have won because he did not hit a spike this whole match. I really enjoy it. Also, oh, sorry, Brandon.
No, go ahead. No, you were finishing a point.
I really liked Solo hitting the spear. I thought it was a pretty damn good spear too.
Solo had a good performance.
Yeah, I thought Solo was really good. I feel like the story they were trying to tell in that match, and I feel like it was alluded to in the SmackDown prior to SummerSlam, was like Solo watched Roman lose at WrestleMania, and he was trying to learn from Roman's mistakes. So that's where you see him catching all of Cody's offense, and that's where you kind of see him doing things that, kind of pursuing things too, and then that Roman kind of did, like using some similar tactics, using some similar. I feel like there's a lot of aura that Solo was trying to portray that he probably would have picked up from Roman in the WrestleMania match. Um, I feel like, right, like if he would have hit the spike, like would he have won the match? He never really got that far into it before Roman came back. But I feel like it was definitely like Solo trying to kind of tread in the steps that Roman made in his WrestleMania match, and kind of trying to maybe at some point the idea would have been to ultimately one up him and beat Cody for the belt, because he's a dangerous tribal chief. He's not a weak tribal chief like that old Roman Reigns, who coming back, like I don't know if it was just me, but like he kind of looked. Has Roman always looked that kind of gaunt to you guys? I know he said he had like some health stuff that I think he was contending with following his match at WrestleMania, but he looks a little leaner to me. I don't know if you guys kind of had the same impression of him coming back. He's definitely got more gray in his beard.
He had quite a bit of gray in his beard coming and going in his last stint. I didn't notice too much about his size per se, but yeah, I didn't notice it egregiously one way or the
He
other.
looked a little leaner. As for Gray, I mean, he did lose his dad last month, so that probably had a little something to do with it. I think he looks. I like the gray in his beard. It gives him like a distinguished gentleman look. Makes him look like the OTC.
Distinguished tribal gentleman.
Is it original tribal chief or one tribal chief?
The only
I don't know.
tribal
I'm gonna
chief.
buy
Or
that
the
shirt
only
though.
tribal chief, right? Like,
I'm gonna buy merch. I like that. I like that shirt.
Kind of gives me the vibes of like the OC. Like, what does OC stand for? Is it the original club? Is it the only club that matters?
maybe I'll say in his return promo on Friday. He did give Cody the nod of approval? Question mark. Is that a nod of approval from Roman?
He certainly
It
did
was a
nod
nod.
in his direction. It was a nod. Well, I mean, they're already speculating, like WWE on Fox, on Twitter, and on YouTube, they're already speculating Reigns Rhodes 3, which, I mean, that's going to happen. Now, whether or not there'll be bloodline shenanigans on the opposite side of the coin now, or on, I should say, there's really no coin involved. Like, the bloodline at this point, Reigns and Rhodes are both targets. So it'll be interesting to see, like, if and when that match happens, how much the bloodline will ultimately play into it.
No, they will.
Whether
You have to imagine it's a foregone conclusion.
Oh.
Yeah,
Will it go to the point of a double DQ? Maybe, which will kind of suck. But I mean, what else do you do?
Right.
that's the sucky thing too. Is like really the bloodline story can play out for as long as they need it to. They kind of paint themselves into a corner with that. I mean, you get Reigns Rhodes 3, you know, within the next 12 months or so, sure. Like if they want to kick it further down the road, because you still got The Rock who can come back at any point, because I believe he's done filming now as well with his movie. And then he teased this, an advancement in the story between him and Cody, but then also Rock and Roman is wide open too. And there's so much that can happen with that now that Roman seemingly, and according to Rock's perspective, could have also turned on his family. So there's a lot that can build within the bloodline storyline still going forward that would prevent Reigns Rhodes 3 from happening.
Yeah, if I was to like be an armchair booker here for just a second, I do think that there is obviously going to be the elephant addressed in the room where you would have discussion about Reigns and Cody. 3, I think Cody is obviously, because the guy can't say no, he's going to say yes. Of course, you can get your title shot. And if I was booking it, I would let them do the contract signing and have the bloodline jump them, and not actually do a contract signing. So it addresses it, but also puts it on the back burner to not give them that match because they have to worry about Solo and Co first. So
Solo and Co. I like that.
Yeah, it kind of rhymes, right? Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, that was slick.
Solo
With his
That was
best
a nice thing
henchman,
they've done.
Tongaloa.
Oh god, it still has that eye patch.
Hey, I think for this match, the botch that he had with getting Cody into the corner, he did have an eye patch on.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of tough.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. It's okay. It's not that bad. Not as bad as the one at the Money in the Bank. So
Right. I love that that Cole was calling them the Gorillas of Destiny. I am a New Japan mark. So, they are the God. They will always be the God.
do we have a report on Jacob Fatu after that commentator table?
You see in the walking boot. You see in the walking boot. But if he really did break his ankle or anything, he would be in a walking boot after like 2 months. If he did anything, it would be a while before he was in a walking boot or even walking in general. So I'm going to put it as world-class selling.
Well, he banged his knee, didn't he? I don't know if he did anything to his ankle. I saw him holding his knee.
His shin. It looked like it was his shin, or
he took his shin straight to the edge of the table.
Yeah. I mean, storyline wise, it makes a lot of sense for him to sell the injury just to keep him away from Roman.
Right.
So I think that if he's fine, then it makes a lot of sense. You did see also like post show or some clips of him getting taken out. Solo wasn't even helping him to the back. It was literally just one referee helping him to the back. So I think if it was an actual serious leg injury, there probably would have been a little bit more care and attention to it.
I would have got a stretcher job.
Yeah, or at the very least, give him a crutch or something, or 2 people to hold up, one on each side. But
right,
that didn't happen.
I mean, I thought he was fucking hurt.
So the way he reacted was very. He sold it very well.
Yeah, him and Rhea both. I kind of got a similar vibe when he started screaming like that, and Solo's even looking at him like, "Shit, you okay?" Like when Solo looks concerned for somebody, when the state of mind that Solo's in now, like it kind of makes you think. It makes you second guess.
And it was funny because it was almost like a switch up there with how Solo told Roman, to get it together, get in the ring, do the job. It was. I don't know if it was intentional, but when Solo was checking on him, it's Jacob was like, get in the ring, like he just screamed at him and pointed at Cody. So
I thought that was a nice little callback. And there's a lot of foreshadowing I see with Jacob Fatu too. Like I've said it about him since the beginning. Like He's got all the tools, and it would be a damn shame if he was legitimately injured and if there was a major setback to his run right now, especially now that he just won the tag champs with Tamatonga. And especially now with Roman just returning and all that can happen with that. But man, yeah, like I feel like Jacob Fatu is definitely going to be one to watch as far as like his position in the family coming up. Because I mean, like I said, you already got like other guys on the horizon coming in too. So Jacob ain't going to be the new blood coming in, and where he's going to have to stand out in his own way. When you got guys like Hikuleo, and then potentially even with rumor that they're looking at Zilla Fatu already, despite the fact that Zilla has just won a House of Glory championship, despite the fact that he's only been in the business in general for like a year, but he's showing signs of promise.
Those indie promotions aren't real titles. If he gets offered a contract, he'll dump it the same day.
Oh, without question. No, I guess I'm just saying, like, he's.
Talk
My
about
main point is
who
he's
did NXT
just.
sign? Where
Stephanie
she
Who did
just dumped
NXT
the
just?
CML.
Stephanie Vakor, where they just
Yeah, just dumped the CMLL title.
yeah. If Zilla Fatu is offered a contract, it's like too bad, House of Glory. Like you're never seeing me again. I'll be on SmackDown. So
Sorry for
I guess
interrupting,
my.
Brenton.
No worries. No, I guess my point was it's just like within the business, Zilla's still very, very new, and he'll be immediately thrust into a major storyline. But then now that I think about it, like I'm trying to think of how much experience Solo. Well, Solo I feel like had a little bit of experience before he jumped to NXT. I'm just trying to think, like relatively speaking. Maybe I'm jumping on too much a tangent with that, but I guess like my point, kind of getting back to, is just like you have guys that are out there, right? Like Zilla, like Hikuleo, like even Lance Anawai, who can jump into the bloodline and throw something in and be part of the storyline some way. So, like, right, how does Jacob continue to evolve? And especially since people are already looking at him now, like he's ready to jump into leadership role as it stands. Like he's so fucking good. And he commands such a presence already. Like they used his music when they came out after that tag team gauntlet. It wasn't like Solo's music. It wasn't like no Bloodline time. It was Jacob Fatu's music that they used to come out for when they beat DIY.
yeah, that pyro that they use though is very good too. The flames going to the music like that. That looks. You don't put that on a guy who's just a passenger to a faction. Like
No, yeah, you don't give that to a guy who's going to be a tag team champ for very long. Put it that way.
you don't give that to Tongaloa.
Tonga could never.
So, but yeah, from this, I mean, we know there's going to obviously be more bloodline warfare. Does Cody get out of it for a little bit, or does he still
Probably
get
not,
stuck in it the
because
whole time?
I mean, if they have a bloodline rules match, it's got to have Cody. You never challenge him to it, he will win.
Yeah.
Like you said in his post show,
Cody's
it's
match.
his match. I don't know what happens. It does seem like now that Roman's back, the bloodline story did just get a shot of adrenaline, possibly in the soul.
Well, I mean,
I would
Solo,
assume
they were
Cody's
out of
part of it.
control, so it makes sense.
I would, yeah, and I think the biggest thing that we're going to hear from Roman on Friday is that he may say, "I was not going to come back after Cody beat me. I was going to retire until you hurt my wise man." I think that's going to be the biggest catalyst for Roman saying he came back. He was okay with Solo taking up the tribal chief. They called Solo the tribal heir. There are promos that you can find. Until you hurt the wise man.
It's possible.
So what's next for Cody? No idea.
It's not Randy Orton.
No,
Not yet,
I got that
anyways.
wrong.
Well, I mean, think of it like this: it's kind of foregone, right? He's not going to beat Gunter, but you had him. We've seen it. He's glancing at the title, and after this match, it's arguable that Randy, knowing that with the John Cena retirement tour and how Randy's career is kind of parallel John's, knowing that John's already at title reign 16 and Randy's almost there, you could say something stirring up in Randy, like a thirst for gold, kind of like an old dragon, like in Myth, where they just want it, they sniff it out and they hoard it. And that could be where Randy's at in his career. He's this old dragon. He's not a viper no more, but he's coming and he's trying to collect gold, and he gets a sniff of that after losing to Gunter, which I see happening. But then he's still a SmackDown guy, and you don't want Cody getting too wrapped up in bloodline business to the point where he forgets that he is a WWE champion and he is holding that gold that Randy wants. And Randy don't give a damn. Like, as long as it's gold on the line, it's friend or foe. Like, he's coming for what you got. So that's the way I could see that playing out, as a slight detour from what will inevitably be a bloodline autumn for Cody Rhodes. Because I think when we're talking about, I think you had something there, Donnie, last we talked about the potential for War Games incorporating Cody Rhodes into Roman's side of things.
Yep.
Facing off against Solo and the new bloodline. I think that's safe to pencil in. But in the meantime, Randy Orton's right there. He's right by Cody's side. And you got to believe that, Cody's going to go, well, you're going to have bad blood prior to War Games, I believe. So they're going to have to do something, especially since they're in Atlanta. Like, it's Cody's home turf. They're going to have to feature Cody, and they're going to have to feature him in a big way. Especially since they already threw him in promotional materials for it too, right? The first promo for Bad Blood coming back. So my thought is that that's what they go with for the WWE Championship come Bad Blood.
I mean, Cody could skip Berlin, realistically.
I was about to say, I think he skips Berlin. I don't think there's a lot of reason to put him on there unless you're really desperate for matches. I don't think they would be.
Yeah, no reason to overshadow Gunter in this case.
Because
this is the first
sorry, go ahead.
PLE they've done in. No, I was gonna say it's the first PLE they've done in Germany, I believe. And right, Gunter's Austrian, but they're very culturally tied. Austria and Germany are, so obviously Gunter being the hometown boy, and obviously they're trying to establish Gunter as a major force, as a major champion going forward. So they're not going to want to take anything away from featuring Cody in this, I don't think, and he could definitely skip this one.
Now I did forget that Bad Blood is in Atlanta, so obviously there needs to be a Cody match there in some capacity. I wonder if they still because I was thinking with where they slot Randy and the inevitable turn that's going to happen. I wonder if they still wait until after War Games, where some of his former friends take offense to Cody deciding to side up with Roman, and then you end up getting that match at the Rumble because it gives it more time for it to go over. I just don't know then who you put. Maybe you put Cody against Jacob Fatu at Bad Blood.
Possibly.
But
I was just looking at SmackDown. Their main event scene is not great right now.
It's not, especially not on the heel side outside of the bloodline.
Didn't bring Shinsuke back.
No.
But,
What, to lose again?
No, please.
God,
no.
break my heart some more. Why don't you?
No, I think Jacob Fatu would be, if it's not Randy there, I think Jacob Fatu is the easiest one to slot in there for it to be relevant and to continue the heat there. Randy obviously also makes a lot of sense. Maybe you do a throw, sorry, go ahead.
No, it could also, I was kind of mentioning before, that could also propel the theory forward that maybe Fatu is looking to usurp Solo's spot at the head of the table too, being you got stuff you got to worry about with Roman. Let me take care of the WWE title. So
No.
it's Jacob kind of posturing for a spot of dominance within the family, within the faction. That could be a thing.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being a
I
thing.
I could see that, but I also don't think that Batu is going to be losing anytime soon.
He's got to lose at some point.
Yeah, but not yet. I want to see that guy just fuck it. He should be the one to beat LA Knight. Honestly.
He just beat DIY. He is tag team champion still.
And you
For
really
now.
think that fucking he's going to take the pin in that match?
No, absolutely not. I don't even know who. Like, we haven't really talked about these. I don't even know who the heck challenges. Like, who is there to challenge those guys in a tag team capacity? I think there's nobody.
Uh, Pretty deadly.
Okay,
Yeah, no chance. So nobody.
nobody. Maybe you get like.
Yes, boy.
I love Pretty Deadly, but no boy.
Baron Corbin and Apollo Crews.
Oh God, Street Profits. Like, come on, guys. Like, that's the
Three
closest thing you
Profits should
have.
probably separate. Montez, they need to get Montez on this singles run yesterday.
Yeah. Well,
Well, that's Montez's own fault, isn't it? Wasn't Montez the one who wanted to stay as a team?
allegedly.
I thought I heard something about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
I don't
we
know.
talked about it
In one of the other
before.
shows. But
Uh,
that was the event. So, very storyline driven show from top to bottom. Um, Solid matches all the way around. No duds, which was good. We have some criticism on some parts here and there, but there's no dud of a match by any stretch of the imagination. Um, we got Bash of Berlin coming in, what, 3 weeks from this weekend? Is that correct?
yep. Yep.
So we have one official match for that already, where that's Gunther defending against Randy Orton. Any other speculation on some matches? I don't know if we're gonna actually do a whole prediction show for that. It's not really a huge show, but you guys have any thoughts on who else you would see on that show before we call it a day?
I really want them to put
No.
Giovanni Vinci and Ludwig Kaiser at something.
Did you not hear what Kaiser tweeted or said about Vinci earlier on this week?
About Vinci?
Yeah, there was a tweet. Basically, it was just like Vinci's like dead to him. So
Oh,
the odds of that happening seem very, very. I don't think they got along. I'm gonna see if I can find that tweet really quick.
well, I mean, they certainly wouldn't be teaming together. Like Vinci just needs something to do. So, and I feel like they incorporate him in some way because I feel like a lot of the German fan base probably liked Imperium as a unit. So I have to believe that there's some way they could feature Vinci and then get him a pop, or make something for him because he's really, he vanished ever since he got drafted to SmackDown.
So here's the quote.
Actually,
Sorry, I just want to pull up Russell Purist.
go ahead.
Posted this as an interview that Kaiser had with Spox. I don't know what Spox is. I guess it's some German media outlet. So Ludwig Kaiser claims his split with Giovanni Vinci was, quote, sorely needed. Yes, it was even sorely needed. He had more of the team than I did. I was always convinced that I would do everything to become a big name in WWE. Within a few weeks, my stock has risen extremely. That's what he said. So, it seemed like Ludwig Kaiser wanted to focus on his own stuff and wanted nothing to do with Vinci.
Well, and I mean, he wasn't wrong. Yeah, I mean, he beat the piss out of Giovanni Vinci on Raw, and it definitely made you look at him twice. Like, yeah, Ludwig could definitely be something huge in the future too, and I think they're definitely going to feature him. I mean, it'll actually be his home country, so they'd be stupid not to put him in something. But
His character work since he got rid of Vinci has been really good.
They should just send Vinci
You don't even
back to NXT, honestly. Give him that model gimmick back.
the Finner man.
I
Or
mean,
just
he's not he's good in the ring, but like he's another Ricochet. The guy has
He
no.
reminds me.
He's a charisma vacuum. He can't talk. He never could talk.
I was about to say he reminds me more of like Apollo Crews. Like they have a very similar build, very similar like you know buff stocky dudes doing flips. I feel like that's big buff bald dudes
Yeah, and
doing flips.
look how far that got Apollo Crews, forcing him into a Nigerian accent for his only title.
Well, he had two titles. He had the
The
United States
Nigerian
title
drum
during the
fight.
COVID era.
That's what
The
I was
His
referring
only
Nigerian
to.
drum
WrestleMania
fight
match.
That's what I was referring to.
with
What? The
no
United
drums
States?
used.
Yeah.
Well, he had the Intercontinental title for the Nigerian drum fight.
Oh, was that? Oh, yeah, that's right because he did win
Yeah,
that.
U.S.
Yeah.
title was the U.S. title was pre Nigerian accent, and I'm trying to remember who he even beat for it. But I mean, it wasn't really much to speak of. It was kind of just like, "Hey, Apollo, you've been through the ringer. You're still with us. Congrats. Here's a belt," sort of thing. And right, like it sucks that Apollo, because I remember when Apollo was coming in, like people were talking about his work in Dragon Gate and like what an anomaly he was, being as athletic as he was for his body type. But I mean, it's the WWE, right? Like you have WWE guys and then you have everybody else. And as impressive as Apollo is physically, like,
If you
flips will
don't
only
have
get you so
character,
far.
you will not succeed.
That's it. That's the
Yep.
thing, right? These guys, they can't. He beat up Andrade apparently. As I'm looking back at these notes, he beat Andrade for it, which I do not remember, despite watching it, and then he
Right.
lost to Bobby Lashley 3 months later. So,
Right.
Yeah, and he introduced that champ belt. I don't know why they wouldn't just keep the old United States title. It was perfect as is.
but yeah, it's like these guys, this like guys that are only good for work rate just aren't successful in WWE. Like it's hasn't been a thing. It's not going to be a thing. You need to be able to engage the audience with things besides in-ring work to be successful. So,
Stick him with
Right.
Tozawa again.
oh boy.
Him and Tozawa, Monster Express. But well, they don't got Ricochet no more, so that can't happen, which sucks. But I mean, there's your last ditch effort right there to save Apollo's career anyway.
But
I don't know. Like,
I could see. Sorry, getting back to on subject here, deviated there a little bit. I could see Kaiser maybe being on the Berlin card. Maybe one more match against Sheamus could be there if Sheamus isn't. Maybe they do a fatal four way for the title. Maybe it's Sheamus, Ludwig, um, Pete Dunne against Braun Breaker.
I mean, right? You said it. Like the mid card scene in Raw is stacked right now, so there's a lot of different ways that can go. But it'd be interesting to see what they pull up for Ludwig too, because like Ludwig Ilya, I think would be a really neat match too. If they ain't got nothing else for Ilya Dragunov to do, because Ludwig's kind of giving me some Ilya vibes too, just like skinny, dangerous, unhinged, but he also possesses this aura of like sophistication about him, like chaotic sophistication.
I'll take Ilya
Oh,
versus anybody, if I'm being honest. He's the best. I think he will be a world champion one day.
Oh, he
He
will.
has
He will.
he
well,
has the
and they could
physical charisma, and it shows in spades.
make it a precursor too, since Ludwig is tied to Gunter. If anything happens between Ilya and Ludwig, and then out comes Gunter, kind of give Ilya the nod, like, "Hey, good shit, but you're not on my level," sort of thing, and kind of tease that eventual feud that they're going to have. Food for thought.
Their third match could main event a WrestleMania. Genuinely.
Yeah, it won't. No offense.
It should, but it
The star
won't.
power there isn't going to cut it for a WrestleMania. But I could easily see that being the world title match at War Games. I could see that being the world title match at the Rumble. A big enough show that because otherwise you're going to have Ilya win the Rumble or win the Elimination Chamber. there's too much star power for that to happen for him at this point in his career, I would say. So you get him on one of the other bigger pay-per-views, PLEs. Sorry, it's always in my brain. But get him on one of the bigger ones, but not like Mania right away. I don't know. But they're not. I mean, I don't even know if Gunther would ever main event WrestleMania, honestly. Which I mean, I know that
No,
sounds.
stop it. He will.
If he
He's
faces
gonna.
John Cena, I could see it happening. But he's got to have go up against someone who has huge star power to main event I could see a women's main event happening again before I could see Gunther main eventing a night at WrestleMania. To be
You're
totally
breaking my heart,
honest, I'm
Donnie.
sorry, man, but you know the way that WWE operates. They don't care about what the fans want to see as far as like best match or
They did
whatever.
last year.
Did they?
They did care.
In what
It was going to
way?
be right.
But it wasn't. That was never going to be a strictly work rate match, though. Like there was plenty of story behind that. You know,
The
when you
only
have
reason.
Gunter, in fact,
Sorry, go ahead.
you can have Cody. I mean, just Cody's presence alone. Like Cody's already shown he can hold up a story in a match as well as a match itself. And I don't know if you could even say. I mean, unless Gunter pulls some, tricks out of his bag and like manages to come through with more than what he's been showing. Like for what he's doing on the stick now, like he's passable. Like he doesn't talk in a way that tries to necessarily draw people into the seats. Like the way he talks is like he lets the people in the seats know what they can expect, and then he follows through on that. There's nothing to like attract people in necessarily. I don't think. As far if that even makes sense, like
Yeah, that's it's.
he's not.
He's not a
His
storyteller.
promos aren't something you. Yeah, he's not a storyteller. He just tells you what he's gonna do, and then he does it.
And
Period.
there's
Point
nothing
blank.
wrong with that. It's actually refreshing to have a guy like that on Raw. So please don't take it out of context. I don't think he's good enough to be in a main event of WrestleMania. I just don't think his character work leads
You need
that to be the case. He's not center of the poster at the biggest event of the year kind of
you
guy.
need someone you need someone strong in character to carry that kind of a match. If you were to ever be in a main event, his work does stand very, very well for itself, and he'll continue to show out, and he'll continue to be dominant and impressive over the next few months leading up. But right, you'll need someone like on a Cena-esque level, I feel like, or even Cody to carry a match with Gunther into a main event of WrestleMania.
And I think we'll see. Like, we could easily see either one of or both of those matches in Gunther's career at some point. Like I could very easily see Gunther versus Cody.
I mean, they've been teasing Gunther versus Cody for 2 straight Rumbles.
Yeah, and I mean Cody got the better end both times. I was of the mind originally that Gunther would be the one to beat Cody in the first place until they
I was
decided
too.
to expedite it into a world heavyweight championship reign instead, which is fine. But
Gunther will be WWE champion someday.
yeah, he's
That's
definitely
not
not a
even a
one and
debate.
one and done type. I don't see that being the case, but they'll have the mixed tag match, I think, for sure at Bash at Berlin. You'll get, I guess, you'll get Nia Jax defending then as well, maybe, since that would be the only unless you want to put Alba and Isla defending, which I don't think that's necessarily the best idea.
No,
Assuming, because don't Bianca and Jade have a women's tag title match coming up with them soon?
They did, and it was a DQ finish.
Oh, that's what happened. Oh, okay, so I've been out of the loop. Damn.
Yeah, that was on
But
SmackDown. It was a DQ finish. So
okay, well, they can always rematch it. I mean, that doesn't have to be a one and done either.
no. They probably do need to have a somewhat, clean loss at those titles so they can, get the inevitable split going or have one of them go
right.
or into the main card scene there. But I don't think you have Drew and CM Punk in Berlin unless you have Punk winning a second match with a normal referee to get you to Bad Blood.
That or it's like a non-finish, like they're on the outside and they get counted out or something and they just keep beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
Realistically, I think Berlin is going to be kind of a duller card, which is fine. After coming off of SummerSlam, I think they could use something that's a little more, light on story, which is why they're doing Gunter Randy that has pre-built-in story, and that match is gonna be fucking great.
This is
And
gonna be a
that'll
5-match show for sure.
Honestly, it could be less. This is essentially in your house Berlin.
Yeah.
But
yeah, bottom line, they're going to want to show off Gunter. That's going to be who people are going to come to see. That's what they're going to feature.
Agree.
why I'll be watching.
All right, boys. I think that basically wraps us up for this week. I think we should get
we
a show
went real
together
long.
next week, and we tend to do that. I think 2 hours more or less has been our sweet spot. So if we're gonna do an hour show, we'll have to do a crunch. But let's figure out something fun to do for the listeners next week. Something a little bit out of the ordinary. We'll talk some ideas. Maybe do some throwback or some discussion on something outside of just what's happening currently. Do something fun next week.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
We'll figure it out.
All right, boys. I think that wraps us up. So we know what happens now, yeah?
Well,
This is
I'll
your
start
moment.
off by saying this. If we were going to grade the pay-per-view, I'm going to give it an A. I don't think
totally
you can go
forgot
anything
about
less than that.
this. Sorry, we didn't do the grading thing. My bad.
Are we all in agreement of an A, though?
Ope-Eh. Oh, yeah.
A minus.
Ope-Eh.
A minus for me.
All right.
I gotta be different.
Follow us on social media.
Never mind the
We got some
Canadian.
social-
The matches could have been better as a whole.
Donnie.
Reeling us in. Hey, see, you got that Midwest goodbye starting to go there, Donnie. You think we're gone, then you just reel us back in.
Reel us back in.
I forgot about the
You got me
rating
hooked,
of the
Donnie.
show. See, this is why I need to script stuff as well as Pierce does. I just fly by the seat of my pants for these shows. So
I like being analytical. What can I say? But we're gonna start this goodbye off a little different. We got some social media profiles now. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, Ope-Eh 3-Way or X, whatever you want to call it. We've been doing some live tweeting. But as always, thanks for listening to Ope-Eh 3-Way. Have a beer on us next time.